Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today. This has been a really fantastic setup, and Layla, for me, the data is exciting. Where's Layla? That's like the most exciting part of the day. Okay. So I'm going to take a different approach today and think about what would it mean to deconstruct what this third grade reader should look like. Okay? Because this is this mystical kind of little character, this third grader who reads at grade level. And of course, if only 50% are at grade level, that says to me, is something wrong with our grade level? Okay, that's the first question, but we're not going to solve that problem today. So what does this little person look like? What do they do? What do we know about the development of children at different ages and what it means to be a reader at that age? Take a little bit of the mystery out of creating a reader when children are 9. So first we think about literacy. And I realize that the room is full of allies who, by the way, know everything that I'm going to share with you today, okay, in terms of the science, right? And others for whom some things may be new. But some of these things are actually hard to persuade people about. For example, it's really hard to persuade people that literacy begins at birth. What's up with that? It begins at birth. The second is that reading, literacy, is a manifestation of healthy development. Okay? Children who live in highly traumatized families struggle to learn to read. Get it, people? Okay? So this is a manifestation of healthy development. It's not just a manifestation of knowing your ABCs. Okay? Really important point. And next, children come prepared to be literate. Their brains are developing in those first 8 years very quickly, and being literate is what they are biologically ready to do. We have to provide the resources and the experiences to make that happen. So, what does a third grade reader look like? And these are just some little samplings I picked. Feel free to hop in and have this be a conversation about some of the other really important indicators of what a third grade reader looks like. She is, compared to earlier years of her experiences, a more fluent text decoder, okay? She can sound out words. When she comes upon words that she has not seen before, she has a bunch of strategies to use to sound those words out. And it's kind of what we call fluent. It goes rather smoothly. A third grader can ideally read a story out loud to others and have the listeners enjoy it, okay? She understands genres. She gets the difference between fiction and nonfiction, okay? She understands that a story can be funny or sad or a mystery, okay? She draws meaning from text and applies it. So here's the thing that sometimes is not and often not discussed about what's so important about the third grade reader and the fourth grade reader, okay? The third grade reader has reached this point where she or he is expected to read so that in fourth grade, he or she can read to learn textbooks. Let's translate, okay? So that they're going to be handed a textbook and read it. They need to be more independent learners to move the speed along, okay? This is why this has become this big deal, this third grade reader, and I'm not underestimating that big deal. I'm saying it's for a reason, okay? There's an academic elementary school reason for this, and it's a good one. It's a reason. So she needs to be able to read something on her own, okay? Take facts from it and use them for something else. She needs to be able to read directions and be able to follow them, okay? So she can read text and draw meaning. She is a problem solver. Now, she's been learning to solve problems all along, but quite frankly, hasn't been able to do so independently. But now she has a set of strategies, and when she faces a problem, she has a bunch of ways she can think about solving it, okay? She is, and this is such a buzzword, and I added it last minute because I hesitate, but she is self-regulated. What does that mean? Okay? Because she still might be a little out of control when things get exciting. Mm-hmm. And she still might overreact emotionally to certain kinds of things. She has a personality. But she can regulate her behavior in response to the demands of the environment. On the playground, she can run and play and scream at somebody. In the classroom, she can sit and listen when needed. Okay? so she has the basic skills to regulate her behavior as needed to learn. Not perfectly, but good enough. The other thing this third grade reader is a social person. She has friendships, and if she doesn't, by the way, if she doesn't have friendships, she's probably struggling in school, okay? She's probably struggling with learning to read, okay? She needs those social supports, because in third grade, she's in a classroom of 25, 30 children, okay? And so she really needs to have the skills to turn to someone else when she needs help with a problem. She cannot rely solely on the teacher in the classroom, okay? So she is not just this kid who picks up a book and reads it out loud, okay? She is way more than that. And that's really important to understand. She is a whole child, this reader. She's not just a kid who decodes text. So jumping backwards a little bit, I skipped second and first grade, forgive me, second and first grade focus, but I've skipped back to the preschool reader. And because it's really important to think about what happens in this 0 to 5 that prepares. Waiting till kids go to school, and I'm going to argue in a minute, waiting till they go to preschool, to teach them about literacy is a pretty big flaw, okay? So our preschool reader, and you will see you'll maybe notice what's missing up here. Preschool reader is interested in stories, interested in their connections with pictures, likes following them on an iPad screen, likes following them in books, likes following them even with just telling with puppets or dolls, okay? So they like the idea of story. A preschool reader understands that text and spoken word are connected. Now, that might sound like a duh, but this is a really important learning accomplishment of a preschooler. They understand that all these things around the room, even if they're way too big of words and they don't know what they mean, they understand that they're connected to something. Something that's in a story, something that's an idea, something that someone can do, some action. They are connected to things. They understand that words are used to convey a lot of different things. Ideally, the 3 and 4-year-old has a sophisticated use of language. They understand they can use those stories to tell information, to tell a story, to listen to a story, to share feelings. This is a really important part of early literacy. And they understand that all these things are connected to words, and ideally connected to text. Text just being this really confusing way to connect to words and ideas, right? Ideally, the preschool reader can follow directions, can follow verbal directions. This is a really important part of being a preschool reader, and something that if you talk to preschool readers, when they share their frustrations with teaching groups of children, one of the first things they say is they can't follow directions, right? So it's a really important aspect of being a preschool reader. And finally, the preschool reader is learning to regulate their emotions, okay? They're not regulating their behavior very well yet. When they sit in a large group, they tend to squirm all over the place. But they're starting to learn to use emotions appropriately. So, throw this out. Why is this important to being a reader? What does it have to do with being a reader? What is story about? When we listen to a story and we understand a story, what are we understanding? Life. Events. Relating personally. We're understanding character. We're understanding people. And without having that sound basis for understanding how people use and interpret emotions, we really have difficulty understanding story. Years ago, when I was teaching a group of master's teachers who were teachers were getting their masters in early childhood intervention and family support, we were discussing a writing program that a lot of the schools were using. And this writing program required students to only write from their experience. And this really talented second grade teacher was telling the other teachers, this is a fantastic program. I am convinced it only works to teach children to write using their personal experience. But I can't get this one guy to do this. He he will not write from his own experience. All he will write is superhero stories. And I said, well, here's the thing. My guess is Demarius' personal experience is painful. Go home tonight and try writing down a story about the most painful thing that ever happened to you and see how easy those things flow. She goes, well, okay, fine, so we were arguing back and forth. This is a really talented teacher. So she came back the next week and she said, okay, Kate, I did it. I went and asked him, I said, Demarius, how come you will never write about your experiences? It's always superhero, superhero, superhero. And he says, because my life sucks. Second grade. Okay? So regulating and understanding, I said regulates emotions, but the first piece of that is understanding them. It's a super important part of being a reader, of being literate. Next is the toddler reader. Okay? And while people in the room understand what a toddler reader is, many people won't. This is a hard sell on some people. Toddler reader? What is she? Okay? She doesn't really get the whole text thing yet, but she gets very well that stories and pictures are connected, okay? And information and pictures are connected. She understands that, and that's not nothing. That's a big deal in symbolic representation. She understands that she can get information from books and from stories and from iPads and from television, okay? She also has come to understand through multiple temper tantrums that words are extremely powerful, and that using words gets you what you want, gets you what you need, and keeps you from being wired. Words are extremely powerful, and a toddler has developed that level of literacy in that regard. And so we come to the infant reader. And many of you may know that the American Academy of Pediatrics, of course, has endorsed reading down to newborn level, and everyone's scrambling to figure out what that actually means, right? So what does it mean to read to a newborn? But newborns come ready to read. They use their senses to learn. So we really should not mind too much when a toddler puts their book into their mouth. It should be non-toxic, but they're going to do that. It's their way of exploring. They also are learning very quickly that those odd sounds coming out of the mouths of people are important and valuable. They're also learning that iPhones are really important because of how much their parents use them. Okay. All part of literacy and reading. They're learning to understand, and this is extremely important, that faces and words and actions go together. That when the certain sounds come out of this mouth of the person in front of them, that she's then going to do something that they like or don't like, okay? And that those go together. And she reads people, especially faces. The most astute observer of adult behavior is an infant. They watch their special adult like nothing else in the world. And they know what the adult is going to do sometimes before the adult does it, because they have so skillfully learned to read that adult. And after all, that is the beginnings of symbolic representation. What appears here on the grown-up's face is the symbolic representation that they're starting to read from. They also can appreciate books. They also can appreciate other media. I don't know, but okay. And so it's a really important thing to think about. This reader does not emerge at first or second or third grade. He or she emerges right from the womb, ready to go. So what are the processes that build this? Okay. So like I said, I tried to back up thinking about what are the building blocks. This is what we're looking for. What are the building blocks that allow for that? And we have a lot of research that shows what processes support early literacy. I'm going to go through this quickly because y'all know these. Okay? And the first is language. Language, especially adult language and older child language that a child hears and interacts with, should be frequent, should be frequently one-on-one. Very important that children get enough one-on-one interaction, which has a lot of policy implications, right? It should be warm. Children should learn early on that these language interactions are mostly positive things because they're going to want to have more of them, okay? I heard a story on, also an NPR story, about a man actually who was serving time in prison. And he was describing his childhood and described a scenario in which all he ever heard were negative words. And he adopted a code of silence for himself in prison because words were nothing to him. He, looking at getting out of prison, was just learning to use words in positive ways and adopting a way of interacting with people. Children need to have this rich interaction, frequent, but not just neutral, warm and positive interaction. And they need lots of vocabulary, all kinds of vocabulary, preferably not swear words because they learn those really quickly, but you laugh, but good. So they need to have frequent one-on-one interactive story reading. I am all for group story time. I just don't see great evidence that children learn a lot from it, okay? There's some benefits, but I really, really think that evidence supports that one-on-one or one-on-two maybe story reading is incredibly important for children's reader development. They need to be talking about the text is one of the things they need to be doing in this interactive reading. They need to be pointing more and more and more and more. We are learning. In one line of my research, I work with toddlers at risk for autism and their families. And more we are learning that point where we agree using this symbol, what we're talking about, more and more we're learning about the power and importance of that piece of symbolism. So they need to be pointing and interacting over those objects they're pointing at in books and media. And once again, it needs to be warm and positive. Because ultimately, a child is not learning to decode text at 2 reading a book with an adult. They are learning, this is super fun. This is cool. This is the way we learn about things. You know, the 2-year-old boy obsessed with dinosaurs, that book is his lifeline, right? Every single name of a dinosaur is in that amazing book, right? This is powerful, this is positive. So that we're not just conveying a set of information or a story, we're conveying the power of using these, books are just tools, using these tools to learn about the world and to build relationships with other people. This is really key. So I'm going to show you 2 videos, very short clips. It's called fill-ins, okay? She's filling in the pieces of this story the adult is reading to her. That is very self-regulated, as you can see in this interaction, is having this warm interaction, has read this book a couple times, okay? And she has a developmental disability that should make all of this really hard and really maybe not happen, right? Okay. So, I'm just gonna let that stand as it is. Okay, and then do the next one. So in the next video, and these are both from childcare settings, but in the group one needs to be, but the individual one could just as easily be a interaction. We created this entire culture around being a 2-year-old reader, okay? And by the way, one of the children who was reciting the entire story arrived a few months beforehand, speaking only Hebrew. She managed to pick up English and learn Pete the Cat by verse by this time. 2 of the other children were Spanish speakers, and they were also using sign for a child in the group who has Down syndrome who was participating. So every child fully participated in that experience, right? Every single one of them a reader, okay? And a few minutes ago, I kind of dissed group story time, this not included, okay? When it turns into something like this, then all the children are engaged, then some real things are happening. No crisscross applesauce, you know this, okay? So, another one of the key processes that children need to be engaged in, not it's nice when we fit it in, need to be engaged in, is productive play. They need to have frequent opportunities for play, meaning daily. They need to have extended periods of time for play, 45 minutes to an hour a couple times a day. And they need to have adult scaffolding. Adults need to hop into play. It's not really, I will be frank with you, when I was trained as an early childhood educator many years ago, we kind of were told to observe children and let them go. No, we know now that's just dumb, okay? There's a lot of, children would not be given to grown-ups if grown-ups didn't have something to offer, and we do. We do, we really have to hop into that play and help mediate the learning when the opportunity is there, and then hop back out again and let it play out, okay? I'd say a place we are in play right now as a science is really exciting. And the research that's helped us understand the importance of dramatic and imaginative play is the research with children with autism. So for years we've had actually difficulty documenting exactly scientifically what play did for children because it was rather ubiquitous, all kids played. And so we had a tough time doing RCT and assigning some children to a no play condition. But what we've learned from children with autism who come with natural difficulties in social communication and with using symbolic representation to understand social situations, we've learned that in teaching them to play dramatically and socially, we increase their cognitive and social skills dramatically. So in other words, what we aren't able to flesh out so much in children who don't have disabilities, in children with disabilities, we are able to flesh out exactly what processes of play that they need to be involved in to improve their cognition, language, and social skills dramatically. And so this is a message that we can start carrying and start absorbing, that play needs to be dramatic. Imaginative play needs to be something children have plenty of time for. And they need to have fights in it, by the way. They need to argue about things, they need to have difficulties, because that's where they learn how to solve those difficulties, right? So they need to have these opportunities. Having a reader without having a child who plays is just hard to imagine. What is the child going to be reading about? What are they going to be learning about the world if they haven't had those really rich play experiences? Okay. So, we've talked about the children, the child, the reader. We've talked about the processes the child needs to be involved in. So what lays the foundation for this? Children and families, because children come with families, and so we should just really hardly ever think about them separate from their families. Hardly ever. Children and families need access to high-quality health care and nutrition, okay? So I've cited some studies here that really have documented what happens when children don't have access to health care. And it was really exciting in the kid count data to see North Carolina leading on immunizations and leading on screening, developmental screening. Really doing much better than the rest of the nation. And I think something that's most exciting about this is that these are good outcomes, but the needle can be moved. Okay, this is the message to take from this. If we can move those needles, we can move more needles in North Carolina. Children need to be safe. Children who are not feeling safe do not learn to read well. They certainly don't want to write about anything but superheroes, right? Okay? Children need to have a home environment and a school environment that are safe, where they believe they are well cared for. They need to have healthy relationships. We have 50 years of research that shows when children have a warm relationship with adults, they have better language, they learn better in school, and they learn to read more, period. What that means is we need to make sure adults have what they need to be healthy in those relationships with children. This is a really, really important thing that gets overlooked. And so, this is the story. How do we provide to adults who come to the world messy and having had difficult childhoods themselves, and maybe they weren't a third grade on grade level reader, right? How do we provide them what they need? And we have great data from numerous sources, and I don't even want to defend it anymore. Children who read need healthy relationships to develop that. And then finally, we also have lots and lots of data on what a high-quality program is. What happens when we don't have it? Hello, no good outcomes. What happens when we do have high-quality programs? Right, Ellen is there, who does this great work. We have kids who are more likely to read a grade level, okay? So, I know we keep wanting to do randomized controlled trials to show the effectiveness of early childhood programs on long-term outcomes. And we kind of don't know that much about what middle-class kids need, because here's what we know. When children come with difficulties from low-income situations and multiple difficulties, when they are ethnic and racial minorities or dual language learners especially, they need high-quality programs. That's what all the early childhood long-term studies have shown us, is that not that all kids need high-quality programs, of course they do, don't get me, but children who live in difficult circumstances, whose families don't earn enough to be secure, they need it without question. Without question. It's like, yeah, super mom of 8 kids, yeah. Yeah, so yes, it is. It takes everything that's the best, okay, and pulls on it, but it also pulls everything that's the worst, because you've got multiple children, okay? And so we need really highly trained, well-supported individuals. I think we've made, a lot of people mention the great gains we've made with teaching wages in North Carolina. It's a national model. We have a long way to go to make sure that our early childhood professionals are at least compensated what public school professionals are. Not that public school professionals are well compensated, but fewer of them are in food stamps than early childhood professionals. Okay. So this is maybe, if we build blocks, what it might look like. We talk about providing families, and you'll notice all those bottom ones, they're about families and settings. Families and the settings children are in. Healthy relationships, healthcare, nutrition, safety, and high-quality settings. They're about the processes, the relationships, the language interactions around books and play. They're about what it means to be a 2-year-old reader, a baby reader, and a 3rd-grade reader. Trying to separate them out, trying to tease them apart, just isn't going to work, and I think that's the message we're mentioning. So, that's it, I think. Thank you. Special thanks to my amazing work study, Hannah Alanya, who is a senior at UNC, who's like helping me with my PowerPoints. So thanks so much.